Now, the use case for today is a legal agreement review and reconciliation use case, something we built for a leading financial services firm here in North America, whose customers had made purchases under initial contract terms. Now, after subsequent purchases, those terms might have changed, and due to the data silos that are so present across the industry, those new terms were not always reflected in downstream systems of record that other departments relied upon. So as a result, a large portion of their business had an incomplete or incorrect understanding of their customer. Now, from a technology perspective, what you're going to see here is the power of AgilePoint's AI control tower for dynamic and adaptive agentic orchestration, and most importantly, brings enterprise-safe guardrails to ensure clean separation between any insights uncovered by our large language model or AI system from the action that's taken directly against the application. What you'll see is AgilePoint orchestrating 3 overall agents to improve efficiency and remove manual tasks. You'll see a classification AI control tower to classify an inbound agreement and determine the best next tool set that should be invoked. We'll see various extraction agents with their own special skills for various document types. And of course, a reconciliation and comparison agent to help us understand the implication and context around the changes from one version of a contract to another. Okay, so let's take a look at the application. So what you're seeing here is our main app. It's very simple, very straightforward, but will be highly dynamic depending upon the document that is uploaded. So here, a user will submit a new document for processing. We'll convert that document into text, which our agents can then use. And as you're seeing here, I have an AI control tower that is not connected to any particular process step, and as such can benefit from the entire context of the end-to-end application. Now, in my case, I'm using OpenAI. We do anticipate that most customers will follow the concept of sovereign AI and as such, deploy private models behind their firewall and ensure that any intelligence remains on infrastructure under their control. So though I have started with a public model, I can easily bring in my own private agent inside of an hour simply by exporting my system instructions. Now, as we discussed, this agent is really in charge of classification and will drive dynamic selection of the next toolset based on the document that's uploaded. So let's take a look at how this is configured. Now, each actor group can have their own control tower. In this case here, I've selected how I'm connecting in to OpenAI, the model I want to use, and of course, initial model parameters. Now, moving into the system instructions, you're going to see a very bounded and structured experience in comparison to the freeform text that you might be used to. Now, this is going to help me get my prompt or my instructions right the first time around. As you're seeing here, it breaks out goals, skills, inputs, instructions, quality verification, and of course the output. Now I'll move through these quickly, but as you're seeing here, the main goal is to classify a new document into one of a few predefined types. Various skills. The context or input is going to be the entire agreement text. Various instructions pertaining to the respective document types. And of course, the output here being a JSON structure, which essentially drives classification. So here you're actually seeing a variable that's going to drive the dynamic selection of that next tool set. Now, as I mentioned, this control tower is not connected to any particular process step. So here I've subscribed to a process level event and said, invoke the control tower when this activity is completed, though I can bring in additional filters. As we discussed, the request or context is going to be the entire agreement text. So you're seeing here, I've mapped that from my AgilePoint schema to OpenAI. And as mentioned, what comes back here is classification. So we're storing the process name as it comes back from OpenAI in an AgilePoint process variable. Now in this case here, I did map it to AgilePoint schema. If I had stored this in a variable, I have different means by which I can parse this information. And then lastly, the structural governance. Clear separation between any insights coming from AI, in this case, our classification agent, from actions taken against the process. Now, as we mentioned, we are storing the best next tool set here in a variable. So based on what comes back from OpenAI, we'll drive the selection of the tool. But again, I can bring in additional filters. Now let's move into our tool sets. Now, some of these have some overlap, so I won't go through all of them in great detail. But as you're seeing here, what I have pertains to a license agreement. So in the event a user uploads a license agreement, we have an agent with skills to extract details from that newly uploaded agreement. and draw a comparison. What do we have stored for this customer in an existing system of record with an agent in charge of reconciliation? What is the impact or implication of this newly uploaded agreement? Now, coming out of this condition here, you'll see we'll bring a human dynamically into the loop. If we have high confidence around the extracted details, we don't want to constrain the speed of AI, so we'll go for straight-through processing. But in the event we have low confidence or additional approval is required, in other words, an exception scenario, we do want to bring a human in to validate this. Now again, you're going to see some overlap in our statement of work tool, but this does have a few additional features that are worth digging into. So again, here we have our statement of work agent, metadata reconciliation, but we also have a control tower within this tool set. So what this will do is, in the event we find details in this statement of work that could impact budget, timeline of a project, things of that nature, we'll actually bring in additional levels of review. So let's take a look at how these agents are configured. So again, how I'm connecting into OpenAI, the model I'd want to use, and of course our system instructions. So here we want to accurately extract structured metadata from a statement of work. Skills include contract parsing, project scoping, milestone recognition, and JSON formatting. The context or input, again, will be the entire agreement text, various instructions, and of course the output here, again, being a JSON structure. So let's move on to our reconciliation agent, again, helping us understand the implication of the newly uploaded agreement versus what's stored in our existing system of record. So here, our goal is to systematically compare structured metadata extracted from a document versus corresponding data stored in the Salesforce record. Various skills, again, the input here now being twofold, the SOW metadata versus what's stored in Salesforce, various instructions, and of course the output. So here we're going to return things like a confidence score, a summary, and things of that nature. Now we have the same process logic to dynamically bring a human into the loop, but as we discussed, there is also the escalation hub, which is our AI control tower within this tool. Now here in this case, we're using the chat completion inject ad hoc task. And again, if we find things in this document that could impact project budget and timeline, we'll bring in additional levels of review. So our system instructions are going to work pretty similarly, so I'll just scroll through those pretty quickly. We want to evaluate the document, assess our overall confidence, and make a determination if additional review is required. And again, similarly configured skills, input, and output. Now in this case here, we are again bringing in dynamic process behavior. So what you're seeing is, in the event additional review is required, we've specified the task that we'd like to bring in here. So again, that clear separation between AI insights and execution taken against our application. Okay, so now that we understand how the application functions, let's go ahead and run it. Okay, so here we have our interface where we can submit a new document for processing. So let's go ahead and upload a license agreement. Now that this is uploaded and moved into one of the out-of-the-box repositories, we can go ahead and kick the process off. So what I'd like to do here is track the process while it's running. So first, we're going to see our classification process. Now this should be completed by the time I bring it up in the tracker. And as you can see here, we've submitted the document, we've converted it into text, and our classification agent has already completed its work. So closing out of this and refreshing my screen, we'll now see that a license agreement tool is currently running. Okay, so our sub-agent with skills to extract details from that license agreement has already completed its work. We've retrieved our current understanding of the customer as stored in our system of record, and our metadata comparison agent is already done helping us validate the differences between the two. So as a result here, with the process logic, we have brought a human dynamically into the loop based on low confidence around the extracted details or large-scale changes between what's stored in Salesforce and what was extracted from our document. Okay, so as a human subject matter expert, I have an AI assistant which tells me we have a medium level of confidence over the extracted details with 3 significant discrepancies across 10 key fields. Now this first tab is really all about high-level information about the agreement, but let's dive into the details showing where there are key conflicts between what's stored in Salesforce and the contents of our newly uploaded agreement. So as you can see here, we have key differences in renewal terms, termination period, and payment terms, and things of that nature. So pretty key details we want reflected in downstream systems. So as an example, from here, I might select metadata update, and all of the relevant details from that newly uploaded agreement will now flow downstream to all connected systems. Now let's go ahead and run this process one more time. This time around, we're going to run the SOW path. So let me upload our statement of work, and we'll kick our process off. Okay, so again, our classification agent is already done, which means we can go back and refresh, and we'll now see an SOW toolset running. Now the big difference here in this toolset is that it does have a control tower within, so we're going to see an indicator go off here in just a second. But again, our sub-agent has pulled out key details from that statement of work, retrieved the current customer information from our system of record, and our metadata comparison agent is reconciling the differences between the two. All right, and just as I was speaking there, we now see our indicator has gone off for our AI control tower. So if I go back into my task list, we're going to see the typical next steps for finance and contract review, as shown here. But again, this control tower was in charge of injecting additional levels of review if the discrepancies were to impact budget or timeline for this project. So as a result here, we're seeing another task called the ad hoc SOW escalation, bringing this to the attention of all of the relevant stakeholders. So hopefully this gives you a better understanding of how AgilePoint and the AI control tower can not only orchestrate agents, whether it's a public model or a privately deployed agent, but can also bring that structural governance, where we have clean separation between any insights that AI or a large language model might uncover from action taken against our application. Thanks so much for watching. We'll talk to you soon.